Karen Gayward, and I chair the licensing subcommittee. I will ask the members first to introduce themselves, and then their officers, and then the rest of the people with us tonight. Okay, shall I start with the councillors first? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I'm Councillor Viv Ross, Fordham Green Ward.
And I'm Councillor Yvonne Say from Bounds Green Ward.
Excellent. And the officers, please. Licensing officer, perhaps first.
I'm Dale Barrett, the licensing team leader.
Excellent. And our legal advisor.
I'm Michelle Williams, the legal advisor.
Okay, and is Rachel here to observe?
Yes, that's right. I'm Rachel Bonus and I'm observing tonight.
Excellent, thank you. You're very welcome. And then who I see? Shah?
I'm Nisha Bashar, licensing officer.
Excellent, thank you. And
I'm Felicity Foley, I'm the clerk.
Excellent. And then the applicants, would you like, and the representative, would you like to introduce yourselves? I don't know if they can hear me. We have with us Mr. Glenn, which is, it says agent here, and Yerda is the applicant, yes?
That's correct, Chair, yes.
Okay, and then we carry on. I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is being filmed. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available for public viewing. And do we have any apologies? I don't think we have.
No, we haven't, Chair.
Declaration of interest. Do members have any declaration of interest? No. Thank you. The summary of the procedure. The procedure for this meeting has been emailed to all participants by the clerk. For the purpose of any members of the public watching, we will first hear from the licensing officer. After that, the objectors, if there are any, will present their case, and the committee and applicants will have the opportunity to ask questions. Then the applicants will present their application, and the committee and objectors will have the opportunity to ask questions. All parties will then have the opportunity to sum up, and then the meeting will conclude to allow the committee to deliberate and reach a decision. This decision will then be provided in writing within 5 working days of this meeting. Now, I'd like to ask Ms. Barrett, the licensing officer, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Chair. So for this licensing subcommittee, the panel has before them an application for a new premises licence for Yincon de Yerda at 487 Seven Sisters Road, London N15. The application is submitted by Ms. Yerda Turby Rosario, and you can see at section 1.2 the hours being requested for late night refreshment, the supply of alcohol, and the hours open to the public, which she's asking between 10 a.m. to 1 a.m. each day. Representations have been received from the licensing authority, and these are set out in Appendix 2. The licensing officer, Michelle, will speak to these in due course, and the police also have made representation, which you can see in Appendix 3. The police representation has been withdrawn at this time, and Ms. Yoda has accepted all the conditions that you can see on page 34 and 35 of the report pack. In terms of the recommendations, and considering the representations received and what is appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives, the steps the subcommittee can take are to grant the application as requested, grant the applications whilst imposing conditions and or altering in any way the proposed operating schedule, exclude any licensable activities to which the application relates, or reject all whole or part of the application. Members are asked to note that it may not modify the conditions or reject the whole or part of the application merely because it considers it desirable to do so. It must be appropriate and proportionate in order to meet the licensing objectives. In terms of background for this premises, the premises are situated along Seven Sisters Road and forms part of a large shop frontage that has been separated into 2 units. The premises operates in the unit that is also shown to have the trading name of One Love Barbers. The premises first came to the licensing authority's attention in late 2019 and again in July 2020. This was due to the COVID marshals when it was found operating as a hairdresser's to the front and a social club to the rear with alcohol on sale. That was without a license. The officer report advised of a bar operating in the above premises. The bar is at the rear of the beauty salon. He goes on to say that he could not take photographs of the bar because the shop was overcrowded at the time of the visit. The business owner was away and the people in the business were not helpful, so they could not ask much questions and ascertain who the business owner was and so forth. Someone did confirm that they were running a bar and the business had been opened for over a year, they had stated. A further visit was undertaken on the 15th of July 2020 and the enforcement officer noted the following. Visited the premises this evening. The shutter was half down, however we walked freely in. 9 people were sitting in the rear of the premises, most of them were drinking bottles of beer. There was no food available as the kitchen was closed. I spoke to the lady. She informed me that all the alcohol was brought into the premises and was not sold on site. She became very rude after I informed her that she should not have alcohol being sold on the premises. Once we left and went outside, we saw 3 identical bags to the one in her bin, and when looked inside of the bag, it was full of waste food, alcohol and paper towels. Although we suspect it was their waste, we could not prove it. The officers at the time were saying that they were serving them with a Section 34 notice for a copy of their waste transfer. The premises received warnings from the council and information on steps required to ensure compliance with the law. The agent for Ms. Yeda had previously submitted TENS applications for the premises in 2019, so clearly there was knowledge of the need for authorisation to sell alcohol by the applicant, even though she had chosen to go ahead and do so in these occasions without a licence. And further background to this, since the submission of this application, and obviously it undergoes its 28 days consultation period, and during this time, the premises was found again to be offering licensed activity without authorisation. On the 18th of September 2021, the council enforcement team will be prosecuting for that offence on this occasion. The committee will also wish to be aware that the guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act is about regulating the provision of licensed activities on licensed premises. The terms and conditions attached to various permissions are focused on matters which are within the control of the individual licensee and others granted relevant permissions. Accordingly, these matters will centre on the premises and places being used for licensed activities and the vicinity of those premises and places. The objective of the process is to allow for the carrying on of retail sale of alcohol and the prevention of public nuisance, prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and the protection of children from harm. It is the licensing authority's wish to facilitate well-run and managed premises with licence holders displaying sensitivity to the impact of the premises on local residents. Chair, I know you're familiar with the rest of the guidance that is you'll see in the report from section 3.3 onwards, Chair. And even though I don't want to step on the licensing officer's toes, obviously the report from the licensing officer is on page 30 to 31 and does include dates of when temporary event notices were submitted for this particular venue and were put to use, and also information on complaints that have been received. And in fact, the police officers representation also speaks of a report that was made to them regarding noise nuisance and complaints coming from this venue also, Chair. Chair, in terms of the other considerations, as you know, Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act 1998 comes into play, and also the Human Rights Act is also relevant to this matter, Chair. And if I turn you to the application itself, you will see on page 23 of the pack that the applicant has put forward some conditions, some of which are already, in law, and so wouldn't actually end up on the licence in any event, because they're covered under health and safety laws, so forth, and so it's incumbent on the applicant, on the licence holder, if that licence was granted, to actually comply with those in any event. And obviously you can take into consideration what the police has put forward in their representation and the conditions that they have proposed, as well as the ones that the licensing officer will now go through for you, Chair. And there, I'll leave if you have any questions for me.
Thank you very much. Your report is very clear. I don't have any questions personally, but I will ask members if they have any questions.
I don't have any questions, no.
Councillor Ross.
I do, Chair. Thank you. On page 28, there's a little sort of plan of the premises with a scale down the side of it, which shows the premises is about 10 metres deep. Is that right? Only 30 feet deep. Is that scale correct?
Mr. Lake will need to respond to that for you, Chair.
Okay, right.
Visited that.
I think you can ask your question to the applicant later.
Okay. My second question then is, and I think I am treading on the Michelle's toes, because the planning conditions say it's only 9 AM to midnight. Is that right?
That's correct. So as you know, planning is there. The information on the planning is really there for information purposes. Obviously, planning are a responsible authority. They didn't make a representation on this, but yes, it's in the licensing officer's report, I believe, that the current planning permission permits 9 AM to midnight. It's at, the committee's discretion, really. The guidance does say that the presumption is that the license holder complies with their planning, with what's in place within their planning permission. Obviously, the committee is able to consider more or less as they see fit.
Okay, that's all my questions for the time being, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I ask the applicants, do you have any questions to the officer? I don't know if you can hear me.
If you're speaking, Mr. Lake, you're on mute.
No.
So you need to, oh.
Yes, we don't have any questions at this stage, but
Okay.
Planning has been mentioned. Of course, we didn't see a representation from the planning as a licensing authority. So perhaps we can get around that later on.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank
Can
you.
I ask? Thank you very much. Can I ask if the objectors have any? The licensing office authority. That's the only person I have here. Any questions? No.
Chair.
Okay. We don't seem to have any questions. So can we hear now from the licensing authority? Yes, Shah, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. As Ms. Barrett has already mentioned quite a few points of my representation, I'll just go through some of the points. Just like to say that the license holder was aware of the licensing authorizations in place as temporary event notices were applied for and granted. 11 in total were applied this year alone. And the reason no more could be applied because they reached the maximum. Despite having reached their maximum, officers have witnessed further breaches, as on September 18th, officers witnessed people inside the premises, loud music and alcohol being served. Despite having TENS in the past, this is a known breach of licensing against not having a license. Ms. Barrett has already gone through the police representation, so I'll just flick through that thing. We have had complaints from residents, from local people about noise from the premises, hence our restrictions on the hours being proposed. We think if the committee today think it's suitable that the alcohol sales be limited to 11 a.m. till 9:30 p.m. and opening hours from 10 a.m. till 10 p.m. and no late night refreshment. I have further conditions which are listed in my representation, mainly like alcohol only to be served with substantial to a meal, so not on its own. Music to be played within the premises for background purposes and not to be heard outside the licensed premises. And the license holder shall ensure that all staff will receive training and checking customer identification and not serving customers or people under the influence of alcohol and drugs. We would want the license holder to keep records of these trainings and be made available to the police and authorised council officers upon request. We would also want notices to be prominently displayed at all exits, requesting patrons to respect the needs of local residents when leaving the area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Again, I will ask members first if they have any questions. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Chair. The licensing authority is asking for a reduction in the hours to 9:30 during the week and 10 o'clock on the weekend. Is that right?
That's correct.
And yet, the same question to you really is, planning allows the place to be open until midnight. So they could be open. Does that mean they could be open but not sell alcohol, or they just can't be open? Is that what you're asking?
They can be open, but not offer any licensable activity.
Okay, beyond 10 o'clock at night or 9:30 as. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
No questions from me.
Okay. Okay. I don't have any questions either. The reports are very clear. And in that, can I ask the applicants, whatever you have any questions for the licensing officer?
Well, we really don't understand why these restrictions are being made. We've had temporary events later than that, no problem at all. And the planning, if we were referring to planning conditions, it would you allow later? We haven't been given a reason for the reduction.
Would you like to respond?
Yes.
Representation.
On the representation, it has been identified that we have had complaints and follow-up visits made by the council and the police showed that the current applicant had no desire to work within the law, as they offered licensable activity without a temporary event notice in place or having a fully granted premises license.
Thank you. Do you have any more questions, Mr. Clem?
Is it time for, am I able to speak now, or is it still?
Yes, if you don't have any more questions, I will ask you to give your presentation. Yes.
Sorry, Chair. Can I just ask? We're getting an echo because the applicant's also got her sound up. So when Mr. Lake's got when he's speaking, we're getting an echo. So could she turn the volume down on her phone?
Yeah. Could you do that, please? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like a radio, something at the background. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's because it's coming out of the applicant's telephone. So when Mr. Lake's speaking, you can hear it coming through there. I mean, if she turns the volume down on her phone and she doesn't hear the meeting coming out, that will solve it.
Volume.
Mr. Lake, could you have a word with the lady next to you? Oh.
See? Okay.
Okay, thank you. When you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, please start.
Yeah, I wanted to say that the only reason we are here is that we couldn't have a dialogue with the licensing authority, which absolutely was a surprise to me. But I do understand that they want to take this matter to court. Okay.
I'm sorry, can you clarify what you mean by that? This is a panel, and this is when there are objections, then the license come to the panel, which members make the decision. So the court, the enforcement is a different issue.
Okay, so right. So if that is the case, the letter we received from the licensing authority said that if the committee were minded to give our clients a chance, then there were certain conditions. In other words, they're not going to support us, but you might be minded to grant a license. And I'm saying, yes, this lady deserves to be given a chance, if you want to call it a chance. Yes, because she's totally prepared to cooperate in every possible way, as she has done over the past 2 years, I might add, with temporary vent notices, etc. And it's not a problem premises, so really there shouldn't be an issue. So if the hours have been reduced as a punishment, I think that's unfortunate. However, the lady does want to have a business, and on the basis of that, we accepted police reduction and conditions, which are quite onerous, to be quite frank. But if it gives you a chance to do business, then you accept it. As a matter of fact, when I did accept police conditions on behalf of our client, we said, well, we expect it to be a temporary measure, because evidently, you know, having 2 security after 8 o'clock will kill any business. It cannot be a permanent, it's not a sustainable option, really. But we agreed to that to show willing to cooperate with you. In the 2 years we've been having temporary vent notices accepted, there has never been a problem, not even once. It's not the disorderly premises, but if I can give you some idea of who we're dealing with here. This lady started her business as an employee in a hairdresser's, okay? When the owner left, she took this business on and brought it forward. She saw an opportunity to cultivate membership, if you like, by offering them free coffee. Ladies loved it, and business progressed a little bit more. In the course of that development, the opportunity to create some catering occurred, and she took a course in food safety and got 4 stars, which was a very fortunate thing, because come COVID and no business, she was able to have some food delivered. That's how she kept going. Now, when it comes to people visiting and they're saying that the police came, you can ask her yourself, but there has never been any police at the premises. The police have not been to these premises. Not even once. Well, there was a passing policeman who was very friendly, but not for an issue. There have not been issues that we're hearing about. This is not the client that I know. I'm sorry. I leave it at that for now.
Okay, then I will take questions. May I ask first, you said there haven't been any issues. But the fact is that the residents who live nearby, they have complained about the noise. And the enforcement officer, obviously your client was without a license. It was carry on doing the running the business, and the enforcement officer came, and obviously they're separate from this aspect. But so there have been. What I'm trying to say is there have been some problems. You have to acknowledge that. I don't know whether your client wants to give some kind of explanation or not. But anyway, I thought I asked you a question.
Yes, I can respond to that. The fact is that our client lives above the premises, and we know who live above you. You know that. There is one possible tenant above the shop who could be affected, and from that point of view, evidently we are very sorry that there are any disturbance, but this is something which can be dealt with. After all, we have the same landlord. If there was an issue, it was simply a matter of knocking your door. You know, you live together on the same floor, you could say something. Okay, but people have the right to complain in any way they want. The thing that irks my client is the fact that there is an issue and nobody says anything. But not only that, but they try to embellish the complaint by saying that people are smoking in the kitchen. No one smokes there. They don't smoke marijuana. They don't smoke normal cigarettes. They don't smoke anything. It's not true. And in any case, if you are going to have an alarm going off in a kitchen, what you have in a kitchen is a heat alarm, not a smoke alarm. So we know from that somebody is trying to wind up somebody. This is unfortunate. But in any case, as I say, our client is prepared to not be a nuisance to a neighbor. Obviously, they live together, and she works downstairs. That would be something that could be remedied for certain. It's not a difficult thing to do. It can be remedied technically, and certainly it would be remedied by voluntarily.
Okay, thank you. Let me just make one thing clear. I don't know who the complaint or where it came from, so I'm not in a position. You referred to somebody, but I can't say who it was. I don't know who it was. Okay, Councillor Say.
Yes, I'd like to know why you didn't actually apply for a premises licence, but just for temporary event notices. Why didn't you go for a licence right at the beginning? I don't really understand.
Well, as I say, it grew gradually. First of all, the lady doesn't speak English. She had to learn the language enough to be able to take on the premises license exam. And then, of course, it was able. At one point in that proceeding, I was out of the country. I couldn't really assist her. But when I came back, it was COVID, and there we are. Okay, but she wants a license so that she doesn't have to be doing anything dodgy. That's why you want a license.
Any more questions from the members? Councillor Ross. We can't hear you.
Sorry, Chair, I was caught out there. Yeah, I've got a few questions. The first one was when I talked about that map earlier on, or that diagram on page 28. I just the scale on the side of it shows a very, very, very small premises, and I just wondered if that's an accurate scale drawing of the premises.
I can assure you it is. It's drawn to scale, and that is the scale required by the Licensing Act, 1:100. But on top of that, I've added a scale to show the distance, because in terms of means of escape, and by the way, if I can help you a bit more there, you're not obliged to show it, but I did show the table arrangement.
Yeah.
You know, it's a small place, believe me. And on top of it, asking for 2 security for something that is maximum, really maximum, if on a square meterage basis, 30 people. You have 2 security for 30 people. I assure you, the police haven't been there.
Okay, so that scale on the right of that plan is
That
correct.
is to show the distance, the travel distance.
It's a very, very small premises. Okay,
It
thank
is
you for
very
that.
small premises, absolutely.
Okay, my second question then is on page 31, which is the licensing enforcement officer. The 4th paragraph down, it says the licensing authority cannot support the application due to the disregard for the law shown by the management and the establishment. And then on page 36, I know the police aren't here, but they're saying, top of the page, a lack of confidence in the applicant's ability to manage such a late license. So I wonder if you care to comment on those 2 comments.
Well, I believe that the police are simply repeating what they heard from the licensing authority. The police haven't been there, and they have never had any problems on the premises.
But there have been problems of selling alcohol without a license.
No, they had one occasion where it is being alleged that been selling without alcohol. Let me assure you, there is guidance on about what you can do without actually selling. And the occasion we're talking about happened to be a birthday party where people were turfed out unceremoniously. It was really a private event. It should.
Are you saying then that
private event?
Are you saying alcohol was being supplied but not charged for?
We see it as a private event, and the guidance on private events is that if you are recovering your costs, that's acceptable.
I'm not sure if that's.
As I say, the intention here. This was a private party with people, and I've heard a recording of a person saying that they would be late. Would you please wait? We will be there. It was a private event. You see, it could have been held upstairs in the person's flat, but because of the space downstairs, it was held on that occasion.
I think I'd like to ask legal advice on your contention that alcohol can be sold at cost.
But it comes from the government. It's not I'm not making it up. And in any case, I'm not responding to that allegation because this is something that is going forward, I believe, with prosecution. This is an issue. My whole sole purpose tonight here is to humbly ask you to grant this lady a license so she can get on with her business legally.
I understand that.
Before we continue, the licensing officer, Mrs. Barrett, wants to come in, and then I'm going to ask our legal advisor to follow to say what Councillor Vivros had just asked.
And I've got a question afterwards, Chair.
Yeah, I will come back to you.
Thank
yes. Delia.
Sorry, I was just going to ask Mr. Lake to clarify because he said he made a comment about the complaints received and that measures are able to be put in place. It's easily done, but didn't actually say what those measures were that his client is able to put in place to mitigate for any noise nuisance or possible disturbance to any nearby residents at all. If you can clarify that, please, what exactly are they, is he saying his client is able to put in place? And I'm a little bit confused because obviously they've accepted the police representation of their own volition, but this is now the 3rd or 4th time I've heard Mr. Lake say that the security SIA was an issue for them and that then that's not something that they're able to continue with going forward. So some clarity around that as well, please.
Thank you. I was going to ask the same question later on. Do you want to respond, Mr. Klein, on this? or do you need a minute and we get the advice from the legal officer?
Chair, can we just hear from the legal officer, please,
Yeah,
on
I
that
think
other
so.
point? Because obviously
think
Mr.
so.
Glenn has said
Yeah,
that he believes his client doesn't need a licence if it's a private event and he wants to do alcohol sales.
yeah, thank you. Michelle, can you advise us on that?
Yes, Chair, I'm not aware of anything in the guidance that would enable alcohol to be sold without a license. If
No.
alcohol is being sold, whether a profit is being made or not, as far as I'm aware, a license is required.
Thank you. All right, Councillor Vibros, perhaps you can ask the other, your rest of the questions, and then Mr. Glenn, I hope he will respond to the licensing officer's question as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and thank you for Michelle for the clarification. It's my understanding that you cannot sell alcohol, whether it's you're making a profit or just breaking even, without a license. But my fourth question was on page 23, at the bottom there, where it says family-friendly destination. Small children may be permitted, but would generally be expected not to remain after 8 o'clock at night. Well, that means it's not a family-friendly premises for the remaining however many hours, if we were to grant it, that they would have the license. And a rider to that is, can you confirm that the Challenge 25 will be in operation?
Yes, yes, of course. That is reasonable. I mean, evidently, if any person was of a young age being on the premises, we would reasonably expect them to go home early. I think that makes sense.
But that contradicts when you say it's a family friendly.
Well, that is very family friendly because you're supporting families to behave like families. Listen, there was a time when you went to a dance, you would embrace people. That stopped because people didn't behave. Not because you're anti-people. It's because the behavior of people is suspect. That's what's happened now. People don't dance close anymore for that reason. And I'm saying to you that if you ask people to take their small kids home to sleep early, you're helping them to be good parents.
Okay. And Challenge 25, are you happy to accept that, Werby, to permit the license?
Absolutely. Happy with that.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. That's all my questions, Chair.
Thank you. Can you respond to the question from Mrs. Barrett earlier on, please? Do you wish to respond?
I didn't quite hear that probably. I'm a little bit deaf. Could you repeat, please?
Perhaps you can repeat me, Mrs. Barrett.
Yeah, certainly, Chair. So my question was, Mr. Lake, you volunteered earlier to say that your client would be able to put things in place to stop the noise nuisance or complaints of noise nuisance, but you didn't go on to say what kind of measures.
Well, it's
your
very
client
simple.
was able to put in
It's
place.
very simple. Very, very simple. The simplest device in the world, you turn it down, turn the knob down. Simple. In the old days, what used to happen, you would buy a limiter, or in fact, you would get an acoustic engineer to help you to choose a good one. And in the presence of the licensing representative, you would set a noise level where it would not be a nuisance. It is possible to do it. It's very simple. I've done hundreds.
Okay. Chair, can I just clarify before I go to the next part of that for Mr. Lake to respond to? So just for the committee to bear in mind that if you were to grant this license, so even though the application is not seeking the ability for music actually on the license, if you were to grant this and by default they get the ability to do the supply of alcohol, then they would benefit from the ability to offer live and recorded music on site during their operating hours up until 11 o'clock each day. So it's something to bear in mind. And obviously, if noise is an issue, certainly a noise limiter will not work if it's live music on site. That
Oh, no,
cannot be
there's no
challenged.
live music issue here at all. I can tell you for now, there will never
Sorry,
be
Mr.
live
Lake,
music
can I
in that
just
place.
finish?
Could you wait, please? You can respond in a minute.
Okay,
So if it is recorded music, then recorded music is able to be put through a noise limiter, which will then need to be tested and attenuated between the nearest noise sensitive residential property and what would be the acceptable limit from the licensed premises, therefore. But Mr. Lake will need to clarify exactly what it is he's putting forward there on that regard. And the other question, Mr. Lake, was that you have accepted the police representation and the conditions offered by the police, but you have on a number of occasions raised your concern about the need for 2 SIA at the premises. If you can clarify that point, please, for us.
yes, of course, as I say, we are being cooperative with the police, but I took the precaution in when I respond to say that as a short-term measure, yes, we accept it, but we really would, and of course, I think you responded as well, you'd have to apply for a variation. Yes, after a while, because if you demonstrate that you are not a nuisance to anybody, you don't have fights, you don't have people killing each other, you don't have any noise disturbance, and you're being good, what is the objection to allowing you to trade in a more profitable way? I mean, this is even the delay to this hearing has had an impact on business. I mean, because you've lost at least 4 weeks where you could have had a license. I think we've been punished enough.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lake,
Yes.
there's been no delay on this application, so the government's guidance enables us to be able to consider the application within 20 working days from the end of the consultation period, and you're still within that period of time. So
I accept that. I accept it humbly. The point
all right,
I'm
so
making is
the
that
word
because
delay
we
is not really the correct word then, and it's not.
No, I understand. I think your client could have applied for a license a lot earlier, but anyway, let's leave it there. Do you want to respond about anything else about the police? I mean, I have to say I had a bit of concern as well when you kept saying temporary. You can understand, you can carry on with the police requirements, but you thought it would be difficult in the long term. So that gives me a little bit of concern, I have to say, because if you agree the recommendations from the police then on the behalf of your client, then you agree them. Am I wrong to understand that?
oh no, we accept that.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
we stand by what we.
Okay. Thank you. Can I ask any other questions from the licensing officer as an objector? Do you have any questions?
No, Chair, I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay, in that case, if there are any members, any clarifications or questions, if not, I will ask people to sum up. Okay.
Sorry, Chair, can I just ask Ms. Yerda, please, to explain to us exactly how she intends to operate the premises?
Yeah, you could, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, we'll operate in the normal way as according to the operating schedule, which has been accepted anyway. I believe that had it not been for this issue of the 18th of September, we would have had a license by now.
Sorry, Mr. Lake, the question was for Ms. Yerda, was for the applicant herself to speak to the committee and explain how she was looking to operate, whether it's going to be food led or just, give an explanation of
I was going to say exactly the same. If your client has.
Yes, applicant is here.
In English, perhaps you can
Quieren que tú le expliques cómo te va a funcionar el negocio con la comida y cosas que tú solamente quieres. Explícale eso.
Hello? Hello.
Ms. Mayor Gilda?
Have you understood the question?
Tiene una pregunta.
Yes, ¿es posible que declaren extra ley for me, please?
She's asked me to translate for her. ¿Cómo te vas a hacer el negocio? Comida, sí.
Sí, comida. Voy a operar brindándole comida a mis clientes, que tengo ya una clientela muy buena, y darle bebida a mi cliente durante estén comiendo.
Okay, I'll explain that. So what you said that she's a restaurant and the food and the alcohol is part of what you do because the clientele expect it. But she's primarily a restaurant. And the issue of the late night refreshment was it was part of her business because it began during COVID as a takeaway business, and the late night refreshment aspect, which has been removed now, has an impact. But it's basically a restaurant with alcohol.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there are no more questions, then I will ask you to sum up. Can I ask Delia, you want to sum up first?
Of summing up from myself, Chair, the licensing officer will do that.
Okay, in that case, I go to the licensing officer. Would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, Chair. The licensing position is that we do not feel the applicant is fit and proper person, having shown a clear disregard for compliance of the law by choosing to make available licensable activity without a license on a number of occasions. These events have led to complaints of noise nuisance being lodged, and even during the consultation period of this application, the applicant operated lawfully and is now facing prosecution. However, if the licensing subcommittee were minded to grant the license, the timings should not go beyond 11 a.m. in the morning to 9:30 p.m. for alcohol sales and closing time of 10 p.m. on any day to ensure that residents were not unduly affected. We have also put forward conditions that we feel should be imposed in order to meet the licensing objectives of the prevention of the public nuisance. In saying this, I also want to point out, if the licensing subcommittee is satisfied that the applicant will be a fit and proper person to be given the responsibility of holding a premises license, then the planning hours granted at 9 a.m. to midnight every day will be acceptable to the licensing authority.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Klein, would you like to sum up? Is there anything else you like us to, you want to say to us? We can't hear you.
You're on mute, Mr. Lake.
We can't hear you, I'm afraid. Felicity, can you help with this?
I can't. I can mute people, but I can't unmute people.
Okay.
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm unmuted.
Okay. Would you like to sum up, please?
Yes, please. Yes, the application is as it is. We humbly ask you to grant this license so that some business can continue after years of struggle on the behalf of my client. And there will not be any noise nuisance, that's for certain. There has never been any fray either. The issue of the 18th of September will be resolved and show in due course. And we would appreciate it if there is a license that can allow a person to continue their business. That's all.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight and your presentations. Now I will ask you to leave us. We will, the members on the panel will have a discussion, and you will have a letter within 5 working days of our decision. Thank you again very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.